So, as the little note says, I'm Arthur Wasco. I'm a rabbi, but I don't need to be called rabbi. Would like to be called Arthur. And this is Gloria Steinem, who I don't think needs any kind of title to be known as a global prophet in every tradition. She has upended a tradition of male dominance and uh, transformed many, many, many institutions. And we met, it turns out, in 1968 at the Democratic National Convention when Gloria was distributing literature for the farm workers and getting people being nasty to her. You're not a farm worker, why are you? And she said, as the convention closed, she said, with me accidentally standing by, she said, I'm fed up. This is disgusting the way people are treating me. I'm going to get out of this activism business. But she said it out loud to herself, but out loud. And I standing by, said, Gloria, no, what you're doing is really important. You have to keep on. And years and years, decades later, I'm sitting at my computer and the phone starts ringing, and people start asking me, are you watching Oprah? And I said, no, but why are you asking? And they said, well, Oprah's just interviewing Gloria Steinem. And she asked Gloria, is there a moment you remember in all this extraordinary life you've led that really made a difference? And Gloria said, well, and told the story I just sort of told. And she said, so there was this guy who I didn't really know, but I got his name. And he said, keep on, and it moved me and drew me to keeping on. And we haven't been in touch ever since 1968. So people kept calling up and telling me, hey, you gotta. So I called Lenny Cotton Pogrebin because I didn't know how to reach you, but I knew how to reach Letty and said, well, can you put us in touch? 15 minutes later, the phone rang and it was you on the phone. And we met and we agreed to have, this is what 80 looks like, riffing on when you said some reporter, when you turned 40, said, you don't look 40. And you said, I've absorbed all this stuff. You're an incredible hero for me, a prophet for me. So you said, huh, this is what 40 looks like. We've been lying so long, nobody would know. Wow. Wow. Incredible. All right.
That's interesting. I think, I'm not sure, but I think that's one thing that may have changed since you and I were at that Chicago convention floor. I think women are lying less about their age.
Uh-huh.
I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to do a survey, but I hope we don't feel we have to do that anymore.
Great. Great. That would be a really, it's like an index to change that nobody would think of, but you.
Well, actually, now that you say that, I was, because I'm 90, okay, which makes you think about how long there is left. I tried to research online the oldest woman in the world, and I found a woman in the Himalayas who's 130.
Wow.
At least she says she's 130, right? So I think you and I together can take that as an example because
Uh-huh.
I love it here. I don't want to leave.
Right, right. Well, I've taken as my motto for whatever number of remaining years I have, actually two things. I asked the doctor, so what do you think my life expectancy is? And he laughed. He said, you've entered the category of magic, not science. We don't have any numbers at all for people over 90. So who knows? That was one. But the other was, it's a line from the Talmud. One of the rabbis said, you're not going to finish the work. I'm not going to finish the work, I think he said. But that doesn't mean I can quit.
Right.
And you and I both have felt that as long as we can continue trying to change the world, transform the world to more equality, more justice, more joy, more love,
Mhm.
we'll keep on doing it. And we know we ain't going to finish the job.
Well,
Certainly.
and I'm so glad to have your companionship because in daily life and my friends and chosen family, and so I mean, everybody is way younger than I am. I started out before I was 30 working with people who were older, and now I've sort of, that's changed.
Right,
Um, so uh, I I'm really looking forward to a much longer life at the same time that I think both you and I are very conscious of the present moment, that
right,
we can only really live and act in the present in any case. So
yeah,
there's some way in which planning for a distant future is frivolous.
right. But you can't quit, as the old
Yeah,
rabbi said.
right, right.
So actually, that brings up the question I wanted to ask you, which was a question that an interviewer 11 years ago, when you and I both were approaching 80, um, asked you, and you gave what I have thought ever since was brilliant answer. He simply said, so, Gloria, where do you think the country's at? And you said, and I've always been astounded just, you said without blinking, and it seemed clear you were just surfacing what came to you and you hadn't like prepared it. You said, I think the whole country is like an abused woman who finally decides to leave the household. It's the most liberating moment in her life. It's also the most dangerous moment in her life because some women get murdered when they leave an abusive household. And you said the whole country is like on the edge, insurgency, and some people wanting to smash the insurgency. And you said the difference between liberation and murder is whether there's a community ready to protect and nurture the abused woman who leaves the
Mhm,
house. So I thought that was totally brilliant, both as a description and analysis of where we were
mhm,
and the way you took the way you took feminist daily experience and turned it into a major
mhm.
political analysis. That was amazing. And so I want to ask you the same question with one addition. So where do you think the country is at now, 11 years later? And what would
Mhm.
you suggest that we do about where you
That,
see the
yeah, that's so interesting. And just as you are speaking, I'm trying to feel emotionally how this time in history is to the extent that I can perceive it. It does seem to me that for a variety of very different reasons, we have moved forward in our consciousness. For instance, COVID, uh, made us, I think more of the world without national boundaries, because COVID did not and does not respect national boundaries. So perhaps we are a little more able to think of ourselves as all residents on spaceship Earth without the divisions of language and culture that might make us feel unrelated. Perhaps space travel has done that too, because the vision of our fragile planet from outer space
Right.
certainly gives us a feeling of community, togetherness, fragility, mystery. You know, we don't know what's beyond. So
Right.
perhaps we can use that to, in daily life, uh, go get past the boundaries between us. Um, Technology has helped that too, don't you think? I mean, here we are on a screen together. Uh, I just yesterday I was visited by friends from India, where I spent 2 years when I was first out of college, and we stay in touch in a way that we would not otherwise have been able to. So the sense of being a small community taking care of each other while hurtling through space is perhaps greater, whether we're conscious of it or not. I think both COVID and from problems to blessings, we've probably done more of that. And I hope also we are less into divisions and adjectives. That is, race, which of course there's just the human race. There's not actually different races, or gender, or class. Um, that those divisions, I think, have diminished since you and I were standing on that Chicago convention floor together,
Right.
where really even the expression of different racial groups was controversial,
Right.
thanks to a very conservative mayor of Chicago, if I remember correctly.
Right. Right.
Right.
And yet, so I think you're right. And yet, just I think, maybe not under, half the country is ready to vote for someone who makes a whole career and it's not only a career, it's his own personality as president that plays with those differences and talks about immigrants and especially, but not only, Black immigrants from Haiti, with contempt
Mhm.
and expects to gain votes by doing that. So, what would you say, given what you're saying about, like, that's the liberating and dangerous moment? What would you say?
Yes, well, I mean, Trump is a reality. Kamala, hopefully our president, is also a reality. Um, and nowhere is it written that the result will be what you and I hope. So we have to be aware of that. I mean, especially for me, for instance, because I'm here on the island of Manhattan, where 98% of people are against Trump because we know him. I need to always remember that he is uh, obviously popular in other communities and standing for a return to the past, for racism, for the supremacy of wealth, whether it was earned or not, right? So it's a question of consciousness, and also of our need as communal animals. It's very important. It's so great for me to see you and to talk with you because it's the companionship of hope,
Uh-huh.
of um, realizing that there are communities of people everywhere who share what we are sharing and can move forward together. Uh, I always try to think of it in daily terms. So my question to myself is, are my meetings, do my meetings look like the country? Are they as diverse as the country is, or as possible for the subject at hand? And to realize that that's a gift. Diversity is a gift. We don't learn from sameness. Hello. we,
Uh-huh.
we learn from
Right.
diversity. And if we're looking around the room and not seeing that, we're being deprived ourselves of learning.
Huh. Nice. Nice. Important, nice. So in a way, the work I've chosen to do for the last 60 years or so has been in a single community, the Jewish community. We are trying to recognize its inner diversity, racially, economically, etc., more. And again, yet we've seen an example of what claims to be the Jewish government of a Jewish state committing massacres on another people, even though the ancient stories say that they were both peoples were children of Abraham, and Sarah on the one hand and Hagar on the other. And yet,
Yes, it's great. Both sometimes a mystery, always a sorrow, certainly a concern. I mean, you and I are reading what is going on in Israel, uh, where I have never been, so I don't quite understand the degree to which the issues are landlocked there. That is, they're actually not necessarily differences of spirit or hope for our human future, but they are contentious uh, in a way that's intimate, very intimate.
right. So that this past year at that level has been very depressing, soul depressing, not just emotion depressing for me. And it's taken a while for me to get past the sense of what happened
Mm.
to, okay, what should happen next. So, and let me ask one last question. Are there any specific things you would be urging people to do as we face that
You
dangerous, liberating moment?
know, it's a mix, isn't it? Because I mean, I would hope that each of my days reflects some effort, energy, something to cross boundaries. I mean, I live on the island of Manhattan, right? So I put a big sign in my window for Kamala. So I thought at least my neighbors, I could campaign with my neighbors. I use my living room as a space for meetings. We don't have enough space for ordinary meetings. I try to remember that in a meeting, it's the best, in my experience, to sit in a circle, not in a hierarchy, and to make sure that, that we're all speaking. Actually, my dear late friend, Wilma Mankiller, who was the chief of the Cherokee Nation, was very helpful with that because in every meeting, she gave us a talking stick to pass around, and you could speak when you possessed this the stick, but then you passed it around. It helped in creating a kind of spontaneous democracy, at least in the groups we sit in. And also to remember that difference is a gift, because we learn from, as I was saying, we learn from difference, not sameness. I suppose it's also important to remember the present is the only time we can live. So it isn't wasted in planning for a mysterious future, but striving to practice these connections from day to day. Sometimes when I leave my house in the morning, if I leave my house, I think, all right, well, I would like to speak to the first person I see. It might be the mailman, it might be somebody on this side. I don't know, just to use what opportunities we have to break down the barriers between us. At the same time that we try to break down the barriers of time and distance, which is why I'm so happy to see you. I mean, it means so much after all these years. And I was so thinking of us while I was watching Kamala's speech at the Democratic Convention
Right.
in Chicago all these years after you and I stood there. And there is progress that we see, right?
Yeah.
And that we need to tell people to especially young people.
Well, I think that's a brilliant way to end our conversation. We'll both keep on doing the work, even though we know neither one of us is going to get to finish it. But neither one of us is going to quit. So,
No.
right.
No.
So, thank you.
It's so wonderful to see you. I just can't begin. I'm hugging you from a distance here.
Right. So, thanks very much, and good life and a long life. In Yiddish, we would say bis 120 till 120. That is
Okay,
full of energy and
I'll
joy.
go for that.
Right. Okay. So that's wonderful, and I think we can end on that note of wonder and hope and intention, action, and activist intention. That's what
Yes,
hope
yes,
is
yes.
to be.
Okay, here's to our continuation.
Oh man.
Chicago to now, from now to whenever, right?
Right, right. So, amen, and thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.